Where? What does deliver mean? It is okay to clap for him, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, you can just come straight ahead. Would you like to take a glass of water? All right, please allow him to take a glass of water before he starts. I don't know, have you all gotten a chance to look at the papers? In your different platforms. Secondly, I'll say that it's also very important that and guard the integrity of our politics. And so it's important that we also just go out and tell people in this city and in... This is your main microphone.
Where I've offered myself for the position of the governor of Nairobi, actually the first governor of Nairobi. I will actually read a short statement and then open this session to a question and answer so that you can raise any issues you think they need to be addressed formally. So let me start by saying that I welcome you very this morning here as fellow citizens of Kenya and residents and workers of Nairobi. I welcome you here today to share with you some important information that I'm sure will interest you as we enter the final days before nominations of candidates for the Nairobi County Governor by various parties. As we all know, this is the very first time we are electing a governor for Nairobi County. I'm excited about the opportunity for us all to take control of our own destiny, to improve Nairobi today and to make it a better place to live for us and for our children in future. Nairobi leads Kenya in many ways, and the role of Nairobi governor is a serious job that needs a serious leader with the skills and experience to lead Nairobi into the future. We cannot give this job to just anyone. I believe that the people of Nairobi need a leader who delivers results, a leader who is focused on solving the problems that we all face each day. We need jobs, more security, better roads, quality education, affordable housing, as well as affordable medical care. To women and young people in our lives deserve more opportunities. To make this a reality, Nairobi needs a leader of actions, not words, and a leader who personifies a new style of business and not old politics. It is for this reason that it is important for all of you Kenyans and residents of Nairobi for you to vote for your choice of governor candidate tomorrow. Irrespective of whatever party you may belong to, I would urge you to vote and nominate the best candidate to lead Nairobi into the future. The nomination process has been clarified in various papers. The important thing is that everyone now can vote for any candidate from any political party. All what you need to do is go to the polling station with your voter's card, IBC voter's card, as well as your ID or passport. And that is all you need to exercise your right to vote for the best candidate to run the county of Nairobi. I know, and we know, that there are many areas of life in Nairobi that need improvement. Unemployment, transport, security, cost of living, among others. And all these issues illustrate the need for Nairobi to elect a governor that can deliver results. I would like to share with you some ideas on what we have in mind. If we are to think about Nairobi in the next 20 years, Nairobi will have a population of 12 million people. Therefore, we need to start laying foundations for a city, a county, with a population of 12 million people. And I want to say that any governor who wants to run this county must be prepared and have the capacity to deal with the challenges of running such a city. I have 4 points to make regarding this issue. The first thing, as we prepare for this phenomenal growth of the city and the population, is to have a clear vision of where we want to take this county. And my first vision, and the clear vision for me, is to build this county and Nairobi as Africa's business capital. To build Africa's business capital, one has to think very hard what needs to be done so that Nairobi can emerge as a true business capital for Africa. Addis Ababa, as many of you are aware, is the continent's political capital. It is the headquarters of African Union, is the headquarters Economic Commission of Africa, and very many other politically oriented institutions within the continent. Today, we do not have a true Africa's business capital, but there are many contenders for this position. These include Johannesburg, maybe Lagos, and Cairo, and Nairobi. Nairobi is well positioned to be the true business capital for Africa. The location is, we have a good location, we have good climate, and the distances from Nairobi to South Africa, to West Africa, and to Northern Africa, as well as Dubai, are basically almost the same, about 3.5 hours. But the distances from other potential competitors are far much longer than that. But you know, to build a capital, you cannot sit on your laurels. There are many other cities which are also struggling to come up as business capital for Africa. But you can imagine what is required to have a business capital. You must think about the number of houses you require, the number of roads which need to be organized well. But I think the important thing is to understand that to build such capital, you need to think very, very hard about the infrastructure which is required to sustain such a business capital. There are already ingredients for such a position for Nairobi. We now have the headquarters of Coca-Cola here. General Electric has started coming here. Microsoft is using Nairobi as a base. IBM already is collaborating with the Catholic University to establish a major laboratory here. So we have the ingredients. What we need now is to make sure that we now plan it formally for it to be a business capital for Africa. There are already ingredients in place. The other thing which is very important and which are critical for us in this country is to address the problems of urban youth, unemployment, and urban poverty. On various occasions, I've talked about how to solve these problems, and I have said on many occasions, the first thing is to double the economy of Nairobi within the next 5 to 10 years. And I've given the 3 pillars which we shall use to address this problem or to enable us to double the economy of Nairobi in 5 years. I've talked about a 24-hour economy, which is very, very important. I have elaborated on various occasions what we should do with this. But the whole idea is to make sure that this county works for 24 hours. I've been thinking very hard about when America wakes up, we in Kenya are already, in darkness at night. And yet there's a lot of work which can be outsourced from America to Kenya. And therefore, it becomes very important for us to be able to address this. The second pillar, which I have emphasized, is the building markets for our people in this county. And it's very, very important to build a new market. There are about 53 markets in this county where a lot of ladies, young people go to trade and to transact. But we want to double that. But the critical factor in doubling the economy of Nairobi and also creating the engine for economic growth of this county and this country is the housing sector itself. The Nairobi County has a shortage of 500,000 units of houses. And the critical area where we have shortage is the lower end of housing. A lot of people in Kenya, and 70% of the people who live in Nairobi are below the age of 35. It means a lot of people here are single young men, single ladies, and single mothers. We have a lot of students who are now studying in Nairobi from the various universities. All what these people need are bed sitters, 1 rooms, and 1 bedroom. They don't need many rooms or houses very big. This is where the critical demand is. And the interesting part of this demand for this is that people want these houses, these living quarters, to rent. It's not to buy, but to rent at affordable rates. So that is the little challenge we have in this county. If we have to solve this problem, we have to think very seriously about where the land will come from. The county government has about 1,200 acres of land which can be identified and which has been identified. The central government has about 800 acres, and we have private developers who have land. Talk about Dagoret area, and as you go towards Eastlands area. So land is available. We must ask ourselves, where will it be the funding come from to build these 500,000 houses? And I have said before, there are many areas these funds will come from commercial banks, come from housing finance institutions. It will come from some of the funds, will come from the central government to the county. But we will have to come up with innovative ways of raising funds to finance the housing sector. We intend to introduce what we call real estate investment trusts. These are pools houses or land which is put together, and houses are built for rental purposes, and the rates, those we call them rates, are listed on the Nairobi Stock Exchange in order to raise funds for developing these houses. The second way of raising long-term funds is to reintroduce what we used to call municipal bonds. Nairobi City used to issue municipal bonds or city bonds, long-term bonds for 15 to 20 years. But these disappeared. We want to reintroduce them again as a way of raising long-term funds for financing the housing development in this country. These bonds can be raised through the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and as you are aware, as a long-serving chairman of the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and therefore I have quite some experience in that area as far as raising of funds for long-term development of housing is concerned. So we will have land, and we have land. We have access, or can get access to Nairobi Stock Exchange. We can get access to international finance, Shelter Afrique. My company has been raising money for Shelter Afrique. We have raised more than $5 billion for them during the last few years, and they come to us to help them to raise funds. We can tap the international capital markets for purposes of raising long-term funds for financing housing sector. So I want to emphasize housing, because if you think about housing sector itself, can you imagine when we start building 500,000 houses, the type of jobs we would create? And we have put some of these indications of the type of jobs we would have in the papers today. The number of town planners would be required, the number of architects, engineers, workers, masons, carpenters, electricians, plumbers. You think about it, and you can see the multiplier effect on the economy. And I think it is very, very important to look at the housing as the engine of economic growth, not just for the county of Nairobi, but also, the whole country. Let me also emphasize the importance of, again, working with the neighboring county. The governor of Nairobi will have to work very closely with the governor of Kiambu County, because there are a lot of people are living in Kiambu, and they come to trade, to do business, and even to work in the city. Yeah, we have to work, the governor must work with the governor of county of Machakos, because also a lot of Nairobi people are living in Athi River, in Tara area, and they also come to trade, transact, and work in Nairobi. The governor of Nairobi must be able to work with the governor of Kajiado County, because also a lot of people who are trading in Nairobi, who are working in Nairobi, who are doing a lot of activities in Nairobi also live in the county of Kajiado. Therefore, this is a very serious job, and the governor of this county will be required to make it and to be able to lead this group of people. Let me say this. At this particular moment in time, housing is a critical issue, and raising an ability to raise finances to finance housing is critical and very important. I do not want to address some of the challenges which I think are very important in this area about who will occupy these houses, but I have said before, and I want to say that we will give some priority to certain few areas. If you are building 500,000 houses, it is possible to allow the county workers to have, about 12,000 houses reserved for them. This county requires a minimum or 5,000 policemen in today. Today we have 1,200, but also will give priority to housing the police people in this county. But we'll have enough houses for everybody. And therefore it is very, very important to focus on the housing sector. Now, those are the three pillars I talked about doubling Kenya's economy. I think the underlying thing is security of this. We must address the issue of security. And I want to say again about security. As I said, we have a shortage of about 3,500 police people. According to world standards, we are supposed to have one policeman for every 450 people living in a country. In Kenya, we have one policeman for every 890 people. In Nairobi itself, we have one policeman for every 1,120 people. So you can see the county is totally under-policed. So one may ask oneself, how will you be able to increase, the number of police people patrolling the area? And yet, policing is not under the docket of the county governor. The county governor must be an activist governor, because a lot of services will also have to come from the central government. And therefore, he has to advocate for change, for improvement of these services, and for creation and employment of additional people. You have to have a governor who is able to challenge the central government, to appeal to the central government, to beseech the central government, to negotiate with the central government, to plead with the central government, and finally to demand from the central government in a very intelligent and organized manner. That's all what we were doing when we were on Nairobi Stock Exchange. We were advocates for economic reforms, because the stock market and capital markets do not function unless the economy is functioning well. So you have to live as an activist, to work as an activist. And the governor of Nairobi, because a lot of services have to be delivered by the central government, you must be able to plead with the government. Therefore, the governor's position, once again, as I said earlier, is not a joke. I want to talk about something very critical and very important as we think about the development of this county and this nation. We want to talk about the concept of a triangle of development. And these were one of the 3-4 points I want to talk about tonight. The triangle of economic development of this nation, and which will drive the economic growth, not just of this county and the neighboring county, but also the country as a whole. If you think about the superhighway we have built all the way to Thika, and you also think about the road from Nairobi to Konza all the way to Machakos. If you think about that superhighway, Thika, then you connect Thika all the way through Kangundo, all the way to Machakos, all the way to Mombasa road. Then you come back. This is what is going to be the new triangle of development. This is the new area where a lot of infrastructure is required, because a lot of land will be available, cheap land for housing development, cheap land for industrial estate development, cheap land for building institutions like schools and many other things. This triangle of development must be planned properly. And when we build and we expand the road from Nairobi, from Outerling, all the way to Tala Market, to Kangundo, then you will complete the triangle of development. From there on, all what we need is proper planning. And this is what I was talking about, ability to work with the neighboring counties, Kiambu, Machakos, and Kajiado. Because if you are going to have that triangle development, you need to think very hard about the type of leadership which is required to bring this development. Now, as I said earlier, tomorrow is the day of nominations. And I want to make 3 announcements which are very critical in my quest for this position. It's also very important to understand there will be transition which would have to take place within the government, from the city government to a county government. But let me talk about the critical things. As I said earlier, this county, 70% of the people who live here are under the age of 35. So the youth are the dominant people, are the majority in this county. So it's very important to address the needs again of the youth, and also give the youth the opportunities and channels of reaching the top leadership in the country and in the county. To this effect, I want to announce that I'll create the position of the youth governor. This is the position which will be occupied by a young person who will be able to listen specifically to the needs, the problems, and challenges of the youth. This youth governor will work next to the governor. He will shadow the governor of Nairobi. They will work together, and he will provide the vehicle through which the voice of the youth will reach the ears of the governor directly, without any intermediaries or bureaucrats in between. This is a special position, and is a very, very important position which we shall create. And we believe that once it is created, it will enable the youth and their issues to reach the ears of the governor directly. Let me emphasize one role the youth governor will play. I've said we shall create a Nairobi County Youth Fund. We'll pump in the first $1 billion into it from the central government. We shall work with the donors to provide more funds into that youth fund. And we also work with other development partners to see whether we can put more money into that fund. We shall ask philanthropists and those who are interested in solving some of the problems facing the young people to put funds into that fund. This is the fund where the youth will be enabled to access, capital to do businesses, training opportunities in entrepreneurship, and many other things. The youth governor will be able to ensure that what we promise to do as far as the youth are concerned will be fulfilled. It's a very critical position. It has not been done before, but we will create it. It will be very, very important. And we shall have a young person, a youth, well-educated, competent, with a proven track record to occupy that position. It's very critical, and it will be unique. And I promise the youth of this country that is the vehicle through which they will get all their views to reach the governor without any hindrance. Not to mention that we shall create great opportunities for young people in the county government. I also want to say that we'll also create a youth advisory council for the governor. This council will be a think tank for purposes of helping the governor to address the issues of the young people. I think many of you may be aware I was a member of National Economic Social Council for 6 years, for 2 terms. And that was the think tank which was advising the president on some of the economic issues and other issues affecting the country. And it was that council which was the author of many things, including Vision 2030, the creation of the Thika Superhighway, and also the creation of Nairobi Metropolitan Ministry. A lot of these recommendations and issues emanated from my personal thinking, myself as a member of the National Economic Council, I as Jimnah Mbaru. So the Youth Advisory Council will have to be very aggressive and will help us to address this issue. Final point I want to talk about today is about my running mate. As many of you are aware, I have not announced who will be my running mate as the governor of Nairobi. I will do this after the nominations. But the position of deputy governor will be determined by the youth. I will give the youth an opportunity to select a running mate who is a young person below the age of 35. That person may be a lady or may be a man, but the youth will determine. We shall lay down the mechanisms and mechanics of choosing that person. And I want also to emphasize that we will want to go further than the normal traditional leaders. We will now start mentoring the youth as leaders in business and in many other areas. And we'll be preparing the youth to occupy these positions of the county governor in the future. And I want to say that if we run this county well, the way I have in mind, we may be in the future be able to produce even governors for other counties. Many political parties do not have a mechanism of training and mentoring youth to enter into political positions. Normally, good and well-organized political parties have a wing, not just a youth wing, but they have what you call a political institute. You know, we have Liberal Democratic Party of Japan having what you call the political institute. That is the training institute where young people go to be trained how to think about policies, how to campaign, how to address the issues of the nation. In the process, they grow, they get developed over time. And as time comes, they are ready to take these positions of leadership. So I want to emphasize that we will also look at the ways and means of getting the youth to participate and be mentored into these areas. I don't want to take too long with this press conference, but I want to emphasize that it's very, very important to think about the future. It's also very important to think about today. The county, in another 20 years, will have 20 million people, 12 million people. We have to start laying the foundations of how that county will be able to manage those 12 million people, how they will live, the transport system, how they'll be transported, how they'll get access to good water, how to have access to good quality education. They'll have to have access to, good roads and good health care, affordable medical care. We have to start laying the foundations today so that we are not caught unaware the way Nairobi was caught unaware, whereby it was planned in 1961 for 1 million people. Today we have 4 million people. But the infrastructure and all the services we have were designed and geared to serve only a limited number of people, 1 million people. So we have to have a visionary leader, a leader who can see beyond himself and beyond tomorrow, but a leader who can see very, very far. The county of Nairobi is a very important county. 60% of the economy of this country is in Nairobi. So when Nairobi works, Kenya works. If Nairobi doesn't work, then you have problems within the country. The role of the governor of Nairobi is so critical, again, that you not just cannot give it to anybody. I want to urge everyone once again irrespective of any party affiliation, to come out and nominate the candidate of choice to run this county. This county is critical, not just to ourselves who are alive, but to the future generations. And we have a responsibility to ensure that we have leaders and a leader who can provide leadership and direction and a vision as far as this county is concerned. I have offered myself as the first governor to lay the foundations for the future generations so that the county is well managed, is well organized, and is ready to take its rightful position as Africa's business capital, a capital where it's vibrant, where unemployment is, is a thing of the past, a capital where anybody would be very happy to live. I want to add by saying I look forward to your support, and I want to take this opportunity, which is not common, kuomba kula yenu nyinyi muko hapa. Ningetaka kuomba kula yenu nyinyi muko hapa, na nyinyi mmesikia hii maneno nimezungumza yote, kwa sababu kula yenu ni amana sana. Ni kura mimi nahitaji, kwa sababu hiyo kura yenu ndio ita make the difference. Kwa hivyo mimi ningetaka kumaliza na kusema ya kwamba mimi tuko pamoja, na hii safari ni mrefu, lakini itaanza kesho. Na mimi ningeomba mujitokeze kesho asubuhi, mpige kula kwanza kabla hamujaenda kufanya kazi. Na kama Chairman Mao alisema, safari ya maili 1000 inaanza na the first step. Na the first step toward this long journey of creating a city will be tomorrow morning when you cast your vote to determine who will be the first governor of the Nairobi County. I thank you very much for listening to me. I thank you for being patient, and I thank you for being attentive. On my part, I want to assure you I will deliver na nitatimiza. Thank you very much indeed. I am not in touch with the ordinary person. I am an elite, I am a boardroom politician, and I have been dealing with high finance all these years. Sometimes it's good to look at my background to see where I have come from, to be able to determine whether what we say is basically, tenable. The first time I wore a pair of shoes, and you guys are different from us, it was when I went to Form 1. All those years, because I was in a rural area, I never wore a pair of shoes. We used to look after cows and goats, and we never wore even an inner, anything inner. We had used to wear only a long shirt. Kama uko na shuka na uko ndani yake, hakuna kitu inazuia yote. We used to have, to sleep without food. When I was in high school, because I was in a day school, and during the evening, just before we went to find a place to sleep, we used to have food cooked in the school kitchen. And just before we ate, we used to switch off all the lights, all the tea lamps, which we used to have, And after we got all the food put on the table, we switched off because we did not want to see what we were eating. Because the food we were eating was full of weevils and many other things. But we did not want to see that. And therefore, we switched off the lights. That's how it came out. And I want to say that you can never forget where you have come from. You can never forget the journey you have traveled, to be where you are. You can never forget about that. I go regularly to meet people in these areas. I have friends, and I've also toured these areas. People must remember I have walked through this city all the way I've toured. And the other day I was in Madare Valley. I've been there before. So I think if people are to look at my past, they should look at it as a source of inspiration, a source of hope that anybody can make it. And that is what we want to represent to the people. The hope, the faith, the confidence, and the belief that anybody can make it. The fact that I can bid for this position of the governor, given that background, should give every Kenyan a hope and a belief and confidence and a faith that anybody can make it. And it's very important that for every child born in this country, whether by a single mother who's being brought by a single father, whoever, whatever background, whether poor, whatever, the parenting can make it to, Bola, hard work, hard work, hard work. The second question is about Plan B. The Plan B implies failure. And I want to give you a good story about myself. I was in a day school called Kilogo Secondary School in Murang'a. And when we reached Form 4, we used to select, because we did A-levels, where 3 schools, your first choice, your second choice, and your third choice. Myself, I decided my first choice was Strathmore College. That's where I wanted to go, and that's what I wanted to do. So my first choice was Strathmore College, my second choice was Strathmore College, and my third choice was Strathmore College. I didn't have an option or a Plan B. Are you listening? So because I saw you busy talking and you are the one who asked this question, so it's very important to. So I don't normally have Plan Bs myself. If I determine this is what I want to do, and I'm backed about by people, that's what I do. And then life is about that. You must be focused, because you get small distractions here. Here you have doubts in your mind that you'll fail, and therefore you'll not win, therefore you start thinking about another party. That is the starting point of failure. I have no Plan B. And I want to assure you, I have no Plan B. Yeah. I think the issue of garbage collection, that's a very good point. But I think it's good to look for solutions from all over the world. We no longer talk about inventing the wheel. And we must look at many countries which have been able to solve these problems of garbage, both globally and be at home. Actually, if you think about a country called Sweden, Sweden has a problem of shortage of garbage. And it was reported the other day, in fact, they now are importing garbage from Norway, 80,000 metric tons annually, because they have shortage of garbage. Because what they do with their garbage, they dig big deep holes, they burn it, and they generate energy and power from them. So any garbage which is collected generates power for the country. And therefore, garbage is collected, is harnessed, and used to utilized. We have the Dadora dump site, and these are the type of things we need to do. But I think closer to home, we need to go to Accra here in Ghana and see how they have solved their problem of garbage collection. I think garbage collection is not a big deal. Dry waste management is easy, and universal methods of doing it. I just think this is you just need to be efficient in the management of garbage collection. There are many ways you can deal with it. You can privatize it, allow private sector to come on board, which is most important. You can have public-private partnership in it, but the important thing is what do you do with it so that it becomes useful. You can generate fertilizer out of it, but you can also generate power and energy out of it. These are the ideas we have, but we will look for ideas from any part of the world, solutions from any part of the world. And we shall have young people to help us to think through. And we shall create the necessary environment for them to be able to think and implement the ideas they have of solving the problems which they perceive are critical.
Thank you. I'll take just one last set of questions.
This is a position which will be created, and the position will have no political affiliations whatsoever. Anybody from any political divide who is qualified, who is competent, and who will be able to fill that position will be appointed and will occupy that position. As I say, that position will be the link, direct link between the governor and the youth, so that there will be no bureaucracy, between the youth and the governor. So anybody from any political divide will be able to join them. As far as food security is concerned, I think the country must adopt a policy which I personally believe is what I believe should be a 3 meals a day policy as a way of spurring the agricultural sector and production. If you think about 3 meals a day and you say everybody must have an egg and a glass, and a cup of tea, you can imagine the number of eggs, the chicken we have to produce, the amount of chicken food we have to produce, the people who will collect those eggs, the trays for carrying those eggs. You think about it, you see how a policy can generate energy. And 3 meals a policy should be the basis of our agricultural policy, self-sufficiency in terms of food. We don't hear people dying in India of hunger, and we have about over 1 billion people. We don't hear people dying in China. They have over 1 point something billion people. It's because they have addressed this policy. And this policy comes with some concept, you can talk about it, we call it agrarian revolution. You have to come up with an agrarian revolution, but buttressed under 3 meals policy for every child in this country. The manufacturing sector is also very critical to this country. That's why I say we are going to look at the triangle of development so that a lot of that cheap land is available, can be available and accessed for the manufacturing sector. But these are some of the issues which have to be addressed by the central government. And the governor of Nairobi will have to be an activist. He has to persuade the central government to see the need for producing food, because the urban areas is dependent on the whole country to produce food and sell it to the urban area. The central government will have to come up with the appropriate policy. Our input as a county government will be to help the government to think through about some of these problems, which, if they are not solved, they can impact on the way we live, employment in the city, the quality of life, and even access to services within the county of Nairobi. So the governor must continue, and as I said before, be an activist governor. Thank you, and for those very, very good and challenging questions. And I think I look forward to engaging you more on these subjects, as we go forward as your first governor. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Have yourselves a lovely day. Remember to come out and vote. Being asked about the polling stations, today's